What is the worst, rudest question that you can ask a woman? Is it how old are you? Is it what are you weighing? No, it's how do you juggle it all? Because nobody has the right answer. And everybody is just trying to worry about how did this person do it? You just have to be self-aware, figure it out for yourself, and understand that some areas you're going to fall short, some areas you're going to exceed, but you're never going to have it all. Go to somebody that you work with and ask them, can they give you any criticisms? Can they give you any hints? Just don't resist.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for our next episode. We are joined today by none other the amazing Laura Palombo. She is at Empire State Realty Trust. She is a portfolio manager. Thank you so much for joining us, Laura.
Thank you for having me, Alecia.
We're very excited to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role as a portfolio manager at Empire, the amount of square footage you oversee, how many people you oversee? Just give us a snapshot of what you do in your role right now.
Right, sure. So primarily my responsibilities are overseeing the property managers, and I provide them guidance where I can to ensure that each of our property's assets meet ESRT's best-in-class guidelines and operate within our approved operating budget. So I'm also involved with portfolio-wide initiatives, which could include anything from budgeting to sustainability projects. And overall, I'm responsible for 2.5 million square feet, which is within 5 buildings, 13 management employees, and 73 union staff.
Super impressive. 2.5 million square feet. For those who don't know, it's a lot. So can you tell us a little bit about how did you, and I love this about your journey, tell us a little bit, how did you end up in commercial real estate, and then inside the commercial, how'd you end up in property management?
Okay, so yes, it is a long journey. So after I graduated college, I worked on Wall Street for 2 years, and I was doing accounting. I decided I wanted to move in a different direction. I got a job at Helmsley Spear doing internal auditing. And if you may recall, Leona Helmsley was very famous for having some audits done of her and her holdings. And I actually worked there at that time. So we were kind of put on hold from doing other audits. And my job basically became not really doing work, doing more just taking our time so that we could be ready for the next time we could go do audits. It was actually then that I became interested in real estate. A few jobs later, I actually landed a position at a large insurance company in New Jersey, which actually afforded me many opportunities to work in various real estate areas within the company. I started at property management accounting. I set up a system for accountants to review monthly reports on owned properties. And then I expressed an interest in doing and learning more about real estate. So I was put into the debt group where I started doing loan workouts and eventually for the non-performing loans, and then eventually set up a group of analysts to monitor the loans that we had and keep track of the workouts. From there, I went into asset management, and I just loved, what I was learning in real estate in that company. But in that company, unfortunately, it was short-lived because the company, which once was one of the largest insurance companies in the United States, was taken over by the New Jersey regulators. And at the time, they had about $7 billion in real estate. Lots of the reasons for failure, one of the main ones was that the policyholders basically caused a run on the company by withdrawals. They basically felt that the company had held too much real estate. And so senior management really wasn't able to quell the risks of the real estate. And so the market was declining and the values were declining. So we were basically put into bankruptcy. I was recognized as a valued employee, put in a deferred bonus program to stay on board and basically assist in unwinding all of the assets for the company, where I worked with appraisers and consultants. It included also a month-long trip for me to Fisher Island, which, if you don't know what that is, it's an exclusive island in South Florida with a hotel and a marina and private residence. And I just, I learned so much going through that company, and then at the end of it, unwinding all the assets of the company. From there, I landed at TIA CREF, where I basically spent all of my time doing asset management for various portfolios consisting of Class A, Class B, core, non-core, value, office, retail, industrial within 11 states I worked. I did that for a number of years, and then the company actually merged with a British company. And I basically hit a ceiling there where the company culture basically was not aligned with mine. And I decided it was time to move on. So I ventured into exploring all different assets, all different aspects of real estate. And I decided property management would be my next go-to. And I landed a position in ESRT 6 months before COVID. And that's where I am now.
Awesome. Well, Laura, that is super impressive. As we can see, for everybody's tuning in, lots of finance background, which is so rare on a property management level. You must bring such an incredible, rich perspective to what you're doing, because very few people in property management have that deep of an understanding on the finance level, on a debt side. So that's super cool that you bring that to the table. So Empire must have been thrilled to have you join them. Yes, please.
Did you know that only 11% of C-suite across our nation are women? If you want to see change, subscribe to the podcast, comment below, and get involved. Donate now at aliciaallanvanderbilt.org. First link in the description below.
Why don't you give me about a 30-second pitch into some of your background and experience a little more so that people can see how you transition from this finance background into property management. And tell me, how was that for you? How was the transition?
So the transition, I would say, is still going on. And, my motto is continuous learning. So this new position gave me a big opportunity for that. Since I was young, I've always been consistently learning, having a job. I was a waitress. I was a retail cashier. I worked at a sleepaway camp. I worked at a day camp. I volunteered on a crisis hotline, homeless shelter. I volunteer for an organization that helps work towards the betterment of isolated seniors. So I think I'm very adaptable and, hardworking. And so, working in property management now just affords me the opportunity to learn different things, see things differently, and bring to it what I can from my financial background and help others that, might be lacking in that.
Wow. I don't know how you're doing all of this. I'm just impressed. I'm going, and you must not sleep.
It's overrated.
A little, I don't know. You always said Leonardo da Vinci didn't sleep either.
I'm left-handed like him too.
Well, let's dive deeper into your track record of success and how you have accomplished, and some of the things, as much as you have, and some of the things that you've learned along the way. So let's start with, what risks did you take in your career, and which ones worked out well, and which ones did not turn out how you expected?
So I didn't take as many risks probably as I should have. I'm just wondering if that's something that most people can say. At the job that I mentioned previously in New Jersey, the insurance company, that was a risk I took when I started out doing accounting. And that's what I had just, graduated college with an accounting degree. I basically went to the head of the real estate department and said that I was interested in learning more about real estate and I wanted to move away from accounting after I had been there for a short time and felt like I had proven myself. So that obviously worked out great for me because, as I mentioned, I went into the debt group and then I went into asset management, and then I was retained as, one of the last employees to help unwind the company. And then my job right now at ESRT was a big risk because, I spent most of my career in asset management, and then I plunged into property management, not knowing so many aspects of it, terminology, just how things operate. I didn't know it. I was looking at real estate from a financial perspective. So day to day, how properties run. Didn't know it. So a big risk. And, I still feel like there's so many people here that know so much more than me. And it's just a great opportunity to continue on that learning path for me.
And it's also a testament to just how great your mind works, because very few people can just kind of pivot and start to absorb and learn something in a completely new discipline, right? So, and you've taken all of this experience in finance and you've pivoted now to this very operational engineering kind of space. And so I'm just really impressed, because when I hear that, I think about, wow, Laura is so gifted that you can just go, I'm just going to do something very, very different. I'm just going to fly. It's going to be great, and because you're not just on a ground level, you are on a very high level managing portfolios and buildings, and you're doing it beautifully well. So it's really very cool. And I'm recognizing it because I think a lot of people don't want to take the risk because they're afraid of what happens when they venture into something that is new, where they're going to have to learn new things. And I'm sure it's wrought with fear. Like, what if I am not good enough? What if I can't get it? And, I find it really impressive that you did take that risk and that you're doing so well. And I hope other people will take that as a great example. What do women offer in leadership that outshines their male counterparts, in your opinion?
So in my biased opinion, it's mostly on the emotional level, right? I feel like women have more, might have more empathy and emotional intelligence in various situations with their staff or with personal or interpersonal relationships happening at work. I feel like women can build more supportive teams. They look at individual people and try to understand the whole emotional aspect of a person and what they can contribute. I feel like women also have more of a collaborative approach. Like, they are looking to build teams and create final projects based on knowing how, the different players will collaborate with each other on a team, rather than, okay, I'm just going to choose that person or that other person. I feel like women also are more inclusive, and they are, like I said, more compassionate, able to manage conflicts better maybe, and, pay more attention to detail for the most part, and just overall good at multitasking, or, somewhat better sometimes at men, multitasking.
I love that list. And I feel like it's very accurate. But I have comments to say that I will hold.
Yes.
And that was really great. That was really good. What helped you stand out when you were moving up and being considered for more senior leadership roles?
So my personal motto is like, never give up and never quit. And I try to bring that throughout my whole agenda in life, and whether it's being, a mother, a daughter, a relative, whatever it is, I always would let it be known that I was a hard worker in my career, willing to take on whatever was needed to get the job done. And I think that really helped me. I also was always able to accept criticism, as long as it was constructive, and just make it clear that I always wanted to learn, and that, for me, staying in a position where I didn't feel like I was learning was not an option.
So, on your rise to the top, some of the things that people could see in you were, Laura's the person to go to when it's going to be, I need someone who's going to work hard. I need someone who's going to be adaptable, someone who's going to learn the new skills, so they could throw some of the hardest jobs at you and know that it was going to get done really well. And that kind of helped separate you from your competition and kept getting you to the next level, to the next level, to the next level.
Right. And never give up.
Yeah. And listen, it's important. There's new generations that are coming into the workforce, and they don't really understand that this is part of the equation. And I think it's important for us to have that honest conversation, that you actually do have to grind. You actually really do have to invest that time, and that people are going to not be rooting for you, and people aren't going to say, we want to give you that promotion, and that you actually have to be persistent, and you have to never give up. Like you said, we're like, I'm not going to quit. This is going to keep going. And we have generations coming up. There are a generation of quitters because they think it's supposed to be easy.
As far as it's with the internet, it's with Instagram, it's with Facebook. Everything has to be instantaneous. I am forever looking for people's stories, people that have been successful on how they have made it. And for the most part, you will see most of the most successful people have failed time and time again and have never given up on what they believe to be their dream, what they believe is their passion. So it's really important to understand that.
Let me tell you, I got so many failure notches on my belt. Much further up. I'm working on it, but if that's part of the equation, which it is, it really is. What Laura's saying is completely true, but it does mean I'm going to some really good places, because failure is one of my specialties. So is success, everyone. I'm very good at that. This one's my favorite one. It's a question that I I constantly contemplate, and I know we hear it a lot, but we never get enough good advice in this, especially I don't think women are always as transparent about that work-life balance. I think everybody wants to Instagram make it sound perfect, makes it sound like you did it all great. Your kids didn't eat Twinkies for breakfast today, they hate organic. Yeah. But for you, how did you balance work and relationships and family and children? And this is the key factor. How do you do the balance and yet still take on the more work? I always have to preface, the people who are at the top are doing more work. They're not doing less work. When you're getting that next thing, it's always, okay, now you're working more than you were before, and it's hard. It's more work when you're managing more people. It's hard work to be a manager of a person. How did you do that? What were the things that you found successful inside of that work-life balance, of all the personal challenges, while still saying yes to more responsibility and still being able to go up that ladder and not stagnate just in survival mode?
Yeah. So, I mean, the key word is balance, right? I think every person needs to be self-aware first, understand their personal capacity, and realize, like I did early on, that having it all, it's not realistic. Like, nobody can have it all. And as I love to quote Sheryl Sandberg in her 2013 book, she has a whole chapter, I think, which says, like, there's a myth about having it all. And she actually talks about a story with a mother who actually used to put her kids to sleep in their school clothes so that she could shave off some time in the morning, right? I mean, you kind of have to figure out what you can do to continue to progress. That phrase is really a trap for everybody. It's supposed to be aspirational, but it ends up being, everybody looks at themselves and says, oh my gosh, I've fallen short. This person's better. This person can do that. I mean, you're constantly going to have to make choices between your work, between your family, between going to the gym, or just relaxing, or taking time for others, or taking time for yourself. Another great book, and I actually listened to it as a podcast, was Tina Fey's podcast, which I forget, Bossy Pants, I think it's called, where she says, like, what is the rudest question that you can ask a woman? Is it, how old are you? Is it, what are you weighing? No, it's, how do you juggle it all, right? Because nobody has the right answer. And everybody is just trying to worry about, how did this person do it? How did that person do it? You just have to be self-aware, figure it out for yourself, and understand that, some areas you're going to fall short, some areas you're going to exceed, but you're never going to have it all in the way that everybody thinks having it all is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know for myself, I don't do social media. I don't do it.
Smart.
Right? Because I don't want to know what your fake version of success is.
And that's what it's all about. Yeah. People trying to compare it to everybody else. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just kind of like, the fact you even found time to make this perfect post. How? That's my question. How? So when I say that because, in the advice you're giving, where it's like self-reflect, see what works for you, see what happens for you. The immediate response in my head is turn off all of the outside things that are saying a different way it should be, or what you should be achieving, or how it should look, while you're trying to figure out, what you're advising, which is just find out how to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
If your kids are going to sleep in their school clothes, they're going to sleep in their school clothes.
Right. You don't have to tell anybody.
All right. I will ask you the next question. What are some things that should be avoided while trying to move forward in your career? So what are some of the things that people should avoid while trying to go up the ladder in your experience?
Complacency, right? People shouldn't settle for things just because they might be given something. You should never leave a job on bad terms, like regardless of how you felt about your supervisor or the company. The world is too small. The industry is too small, but the world is too small. And I've had many a time in my career where somebody who was in another area that I may or may not have liked ended up coming to my area, might have been my boss. I've had many situations like that. Not networking. That's another thing that people should should not avoid is everybody should be networking. I personally will tell you I didn't do enough of it in my career. And it's definitely, it's just so important. Also creating professional and personal goals for yourself. Everybody should have them and consistently look at them and know the steps needed to take them. And taking risks, like we talked about. You have to take risks, because if you don't take risks, you just never know what it is that you are missing out on. It's really important. Another thing I think that's important is asking for feedback consistently. As you're moving up and you're in your career, go to somebody that you work with, go to somebody that's outside of your area that sees you, and ask them, can they give you any criticisms? Can they give you any hints? I think that that's really important. I've tried to do that as well. And then maybe finally would be like resisting technology and anything new, any new methodology that comes your way. Just don't resist.
Yeah.
Say yes.
Wow. I think you just did a masterclass in that one question. Holy crap. That was the download. Laura, that was it. Okay. Everybody's watching. You see what write it down, follow it, check off it. That is the list. That was awesome. I seriously, that is everything. And I think for one of the things for women, the networking, I feel women don't do enough. And I think one of the issues around it is there seems to be really serious time constraints for women. I think that, again, it's back to the balance. Like, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you manage to get it all in there? And usually the networking part is the part that suffers the most. And it's actually the opposite. It should be one of the higher priorities that I want women to have an awareness of, where you just go, listen, you're going to want to make this a priority, because what is it? I think the statistic is 80% of every job is gotten through someone who knows you and who referred you. That's how you get that job. That is a staggering statistic where you're like, oh my gosh, like that means almost no one will get the job who's not well connected. And I think for leadership and women who really have ambitious goals, it's incredibly important. So I'm glad that you made mention of that, as well as everything else.
And also thank you to you for making the networking possible and what you have been doing with this networking series that you have started. It's been amazing, and kudos to you. I think it's just great.
Well, thank you. And I think, it's always the people who are usually the best champions in a scenario are the people who've made the greatest errors and mistakes. And that's really my story, is that I don't do it because I did it well. I do this because I'm learning from what I did wrong so severely over my career. Like, I would lose a job, and because I was so concentrated on the job and I wasn't meeting people, I wasn't connected, suddenly I would lose a job. I'm in the millennial era, like where chapter 11, like not because I was bad at my job. I was obviously working really hard. It was because I couldn't handle the fact that our economy couldn't handle it, and there was job insecurity. But I learned from the error, and I want so much, when you experience that kind of pain and you have the scars, you want to prevent others from having it too. And so that's really why I do it, because I go, I know what it's like to not make that decision and not do the right thing. That's why I love this list that you just said is like all this stuff. I'm like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And now,
well, there's a lot of things on my list that I didn't do, and that's why they're on there, because I know had I done them, things might have been different in different scenarios. So
yeah, I'm like, I resist social media, and though it's very good for my mental health. I mean, I might have 100,000 followers if I had a social media, but I resisted even that. I was like, I'm not going to spend the time. I'm too busy at work. So, all right, let me go to our next question. How long should someone stay in a position or role before looking to take the next step up? What is that time? What is it? Is it, I've been there for 6 months, I've learned everything, and now I'm itchy? Do you stay there for a couple of years? Like, what is the cue that it's an okay time and you're not going to look too big for your britches and you haven't stayed in a place for too long?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a personal answer for that each, there's no defined time. I think, for me personally, I would say it would have been when I felt like I had mastered the role and when I had nothing left to contribute. That's pretty much my answer for that.
So based off of what I can see of your brilliant mind, after 1 month of any job, you would then look for your next role.
No,
you're just so smart.
Yeah, it's like
mastered in 30 days, and I was my next.
There's always something that's going to be thrown at you, especially in real estate.
Yeah, it's true. So what you're saying is, like, really wait until you're not being challenged. When you stop being challenged, that's when you know. When you start getting bored, when you're kind of like dragging your feet to get into the office, so you know exactly what's going to happen, really helping me to grow, in your opinion, that's when it's time to start looking for that next role. And on that note, what do you think the rule of thumb is for when you know it's time to start looking for the next step in your career? When you're doing that, like how do you look for the next role without alienating your existing network, your boss? You know, that's, I think, one of the things that is very, very difficult, especially in our industry. In our industry, it's a very small world. How do you do that?
Well, I think what you would do not to alienate is if you think it's time for your next role, I mean, honesty is always the best, right? You might want to start searching on your own and get feelers out there. But to me, I've always had a conversation with my immediate supervisor, and hopefully you're both on the same page. And this person realizes, you know, yes, it is a good time. And if they are negative when you're speaking to them, then they're really not someone who you want to be staying with anyway. So, because they should be supportive. And again, like, it's got to be, the timing has to be right for you, where you feel like you don't have anything else to contribute to the role, or there's something that's right ahead of you that you see that you can contribute more to and you want to go. I mean, on average, overall, I would say you really, I don't know if I wouldn't stay in a role longer than 5 years at the max, because you've got to be maxed out.
Yeah.
There's got to be something else out there for you to do.
Well, let me ask you in a very similar way. And I asked because I've been in this position. I know other, especially women have, where our supervisor is not that supportive. We'll use that phrase. It's not, which would also be one of the reasons why you might be looking for something else. And again, you did a good job, but that person may not be a strong leader themselves. Like, it takes a strong leader, a confident leader, to say, hey, I support you. I want to see you grow. There are supervisors out there who want to keep you in that role, and they don't want to see anybody get promoted beyond that. And what advice could you give, especially in our industry, because it's so small? You don't want to lose your job. You know, you don't want to have a bad relationship. Like, it's a challenging thing, because again, you want to leave things on good terms. Like, it's a hard spot when you don't have someone above you supporting the decision, and you're afraid of retaliation, and either in how the harmony of the workplace could go, or possibly, you know, other things. How would you manage that kind of situation when looking for another role, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the best things to do, regardless of you're looking for a role or not, is to try to establish connections within your organization, outside your area, with other senior people, maybe, that you can just, you know, basically contact someone and say, hey, you know, can you grab coffee? I'd like to just get to know you better. Things like that. I personally have not done that as much as I should have also. But if you're able to establish connections within your organization, and then your supervisor is not as supportive, you might be able to use these other relationships to assist you in that. If you feel that you could talk to your HR department about any of it as well, to assist you in that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging if you don't have a supportive person. But again, you need to do what you feel is best, and best for you, best for your family, best for your career. And, you know, if the person's not supportive, and it's not going to be so detrimental for you to move on, then there might be, you know, an issue with the person anyway. And like I said, you probably should move on and just move forward. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. I do remind a lot of people, I'm like, listen, the workplace is filled with human beings, and there are many that are very imperfect, and many that are in leadership roles that may not be well suited for them. And yet that's the way life is. And we just have to figure out a way through, one way or another. But getting that advice, and I like that, you know, where it's like, hey, expand the network, create strategic alliances with other leaders. And, you know, my contribution would be to say, make that almost like part of your normal scenario. So not like, so that your supervisor doesn't think it's a little odd that after 3 years, you're keeping your head down, you don't talk to anybody, have a coffee with anybody. I would almost say, try to make it a part of your brand, that you are meeting with other people, you're having coffee with other people, so that they don't see it as different. It's a variable that's just changed, right?
So like, no, you're absolutely spot on.
My addition to that, because it's like, you know, if you're suddenly having coffee with this person, it gets back to them when you never get coffee with anybody. So too often companies want to keep women in roles that they're succeeding in and never move them up. So selfishly, they don't want to lose the stability, especially when it comes to a property manager, right? You don't want to lose the stability of someone who knows how to run this building perfectly. And so it creates this environment where, if you're doing your job really, really well in commercial real estate and property management, it almost speaks to they want you to stay where you are. So, how can you approach your company to tap or consider you for leadership roles when you're in that kind of scenario? How do you get them to notice you and start to change their view of you from this one role into a leadership role when they see you in this one box and they almost selfishly want to keep you in that box because it's making everyone happy? How can someone instigate this change? And I think some of it is even on an optics level, so that leadership, and you're a leader. So, it would be, how would a property manager get you to notice them? I get you to notice them. They could be a director, like they could be a leader of other property managers, even though they're an incredible property manager right now.
Right. So like we just mentioned, the first thing would be to build out your network within your company, right? Just to start to know everybody within your organization, make it known your work style, and as much as you can, document your achievements, things that you feel you've done maybe better than anybody else. And then skills that you might have, gained in your current position, things you want to look for. And then at some point, you would go to your supervisor and ask them. And again, hopefully they'd be supportive. And you would ask them, well, in your position, in your opinion, what do you think I would need to make the next step or to move into a different type of position? Hopefully you'd get a response, something in writing, which you would have, and you could work. But I think it's for me for somebody to just make it known within the whole universe of their organization. I mean, that's the way you're going to be recognized. Somebody might say, oh, I didn't realize that you had these skills, and maybe, I have something coming up in, a couple of months. Maybe you'd be interested in that. And that's the way things can naturally happen.
So put it out there, let it be known what your intentions are, make it clear, and start to create a tracking dialogue of where you're trying to go and the achievements that you're doing in your current role that would feed into that, and have that almost like open it up like a conversation that's going to be ongoing until hopefully you get tapped for that, later on, right? But that sounds like the advice, right?
Yeah, you should always keep track of achievements, accomplishments that you've had throughout your career, so that it's something you can just easily speak of.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Laura, have you ever been stuck career-wise where a gatekeeper was not allowing you the ability to move upward or outward? What did you do to find a way through? What general advice would you give to other women on how to battle a gatekeeper and win?
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like it's similar to the previous question, where I personally have never been stuck in that type of situation. But again, I would do the same thing. I would build my own case. I would have all my skills, achievements. I would document it. I would see if I could go to my supervisor. What is it going to take? What do you need? Go speak with HR. Do as much as you can to get it in writing or get it known from who you're working for, what you need to do to move on. And unfortunately, if you don't get that kind of feedback, then you really need to pursue potentially, leaving the organization and going elsewhere. But it, again, should start with building your network within your organization, trying to have coffee, meet with people at various times in different areas and different groups that hopefully at some point might be able to support you and guide you if you come up with a situation like this.
And I think something that comes up for me as you're talking and with a lot of the advice is that I think one of the ingredients that we don't talk about, because it's intimidating, right? It's scary to stand up for yourself. It's hard to get the courage up. I think that's where it comes up for me. Whereas these strategies involve courage.
True.
It involves pushing through the fear of sitting down with making the appointment. I mean, think about the nervousness of just setting up a meeting with a supervisor. I want to talk about my achievements. I want to talk about where I want to go, and recognize for all the women who are watching is that it actually does take that courage. Like you actually have to stand up and say what you've done and to say to everyone what your intentions are. It's going to take the bravery. It's going to take the courage. And it's not going to be easy. This is not stuff that we're socialized. It rolls off the tongue. And it's not like it's a normal part of our day to day where it's like, hey, good morning. Tell me about your achievements. It's like,
it's really unfortunate because most women have the fear of doing that. And it's stereotypical as it may be, but there's a scenario where there's a position. Here's the qualification. A woman would be afraid to apply for it, and she might have 5 of the 6 qualifications. A man could have 2, and he doesn't care. He will apply. So you're definitely right. It's something that women need to just push through,
right,
and realize that that's necessary.
Right.
Be brave and be courageous.
I'm going to give like a hack. I don't normally contribute, but what I do is whenever I think about these scenarios, right, there's a job and I know most of it, but some of it I don't. And that part of my brain goes, oh, but you don't know all of it. You're not an expert in every single one. You can possibly, apply. I then go, would a man apply?
Exactly.
If he knew what I knew or less. And if the answer is yes, I apply. If I ever question, would my gender counterpart choose to say yes? If the answer is yes, I just go for it. And that's how I get my own like fake chutzpah in the scenario.
So that's good. Makes sense.
So, I think that's the takeaway here is that, this is a 1-2 punch. These are the instructions and there's an emotional responsibility behind you having to get the courage to create the bravery, to create the scenarios to advocate for yourself. It's going to be scary. Everything Laura just said you should do, and you're going to have to grow as a person. You're going to have to get that bravery and the courage to apply it and to do it on a continual basis. Like this isn't a one-off. What you're recommending, what you're advising is a career-long journey of always being courageous, always having a level of fearlessness. And fearless doesn't mean you don't have fear. It just means you have the fear and you do it anyway. And I think that's an important takeaway to the advice that you're giving. So thank you for that. All right. So one of the things that I have seen as a consistent pattern, and I'm going to ask you an extra question inside this because I know what your answer is, but we see a consistent pattern in a lot of people in leadership where they had mentors. They had somebody who took them under their wing, who threw their name in the hat. And so the first question is, did you ever have a mentor throughout your career that helped you, Laura? Like that you felt like, wow, this person really went out of their way and they really took me under their wing and they gave me great advice and it helped me throughout my career?
No, I did not have one person.
And thank you for that honesty. And I asked that knowing the answer, but I want everyone else to know that not everybody has it.
Right.
Not everybody gets it. And though the next questions are about mentorship, I'd love to hear your spin from somebody who like, hey, I really didn't have a mentor. I didn't really have that because there are women out there who don't have that. It's harder for women to get mentors than it is for men for a variety of reasons that I don't want to unpack at the moment. So, inside of a space for you, because the question really is, what are some traits that a mentor looks for in a young up-and-comer that they would want to put under their wing? So, someone who's now in a leadership role who's never had a mentor, what are some of the things that you look for? And what are some of the things that help you when trying to help others?
Yeah, so I have mentored people previously. I think, I know at one point in my career, I worked on a crisis hotline, like I had mentioned, and people in my organization knew that. And interestingly enough, they would come into my office and just sit there and tell me things. One of the key things to being a mentor is being able to listen, right? So I would listen, and sometimes people don't even want advice. They just need somebody to listen to. So, but right now I've mentored someone within my organization here, and I've actually had someone recently come up to me and ask me to be their mentor. And I've gratefully said, of course I would want to. And so this person and anybody else that I would look to mentor had the qualifications such as like wanting to learn more, understanding that they had some deficiencies in the next role that they wanted to get to. And, so they had this willingness to grow beyond where they were, open to constructive criticism, and just has a very, very positive attitude, self-aware, curious, and just basically saying that they would commit the time needed to being mentored, to getting guidance to help them move on in their career, and being visible. So that's what I would consider traits that I would look for.
There's someone who's eager, someone who really wants it, someone who's going to really invest in what in the relationship, invest what they need to really grow, because that's what you're looking for, is like, if I'm going to feed into you, I want to make sure you're going to have the ROI. And that's really, really good. And this is the next one where, my question to you before we get into the last one is, if you don't have a mentor, right, as someone who has gone through your career and you've succeeded throughout your career, without that person saying, absolutely, let me help you, let me take you under my, what advice would you give to those individuals who are having a hard time, whether it be they're around, not supportive people, or, they're not in the right career organization? How can they grow? How can they develop? How can they get what they need when someone isn't giving them that extra helping hand?
So going to industry events and meeting people, maybe in your similar role in different organizations, going to classes, taking classes in the industry. You're going to meet new people that are in similar roles. Just, again, building out your network and trying to seek the mentorship maybe in several places, as you do go to networking events, as you join classes. And then also, like we said before, within your organization, meetings with other, senior leaders or maybe not senior leaders, but other people that you can connect with. I mean, you just have to seek it out on your own.
Yeah.
And get it.
I feel like we go back to your advice, never give up, where you say you're just going to keep going. You're going to keep looking. You're going to keep trying to connect. And, maybe even in the connections, if it doesn't become a long mentorship, if that one person gives you just a piece of advice that can help, and you can look at it from bite sizes. If you take little bites of a lot of things, your belly's still going to get full.
Yep. That's right. You build your portfolio of advice. Yep.
That's good. That's really good. And then to our last question, what are some good characteristics a mentee should have in a mentor-mentee relationship?
So, I mean, obviously the first thing is to recognize that mentor is spending time with them. And so they have to be respectful of the time of the mentor. They should have an open mind, be a good listener, be able to listen and ask questions when the mentor is giving them advice or recommendations. They should come prepared to speak to the mentor about what exactly it is that they want to learn and what they want to get out of the situation. I mean, I have absolutely made it clear that I need to understand what your ultimate goals are, be transparent about everything. What are your challenges? And you take feedback if given like feedback that might not necessarily be positive sometimes. And then being able to show that, from session to session what they're learning so that the mentor understands that it's really getting through. And then just being grateful and positive during the whole experience. I think those are key things that I would look for from a mentee.
That is a killer list. And I hope everybody wrote that list down, because it is, I happen to have a collection of mentors. And so I think the way I was able to do that, number one, was, like you said, I'm very prepared. I am organized. I know what I want. I know where I'm going. But I'm also like, I'm very consistent, right? Executives are very busy people. They're hard to nail down. So when you do, you have to be flexible. But when you do, you get a hold of them. And, the gratitude, I think, is a very big element. Following up, letting them know when there's an achievement, following up, letting them, thanking them for their time. I don't think that is stressed enough, I think, in our society. So I think your list is like the exact list everybody should go from, to be like, if I'm going to have a relationship with a mentor, what are my responsibilities in this relationship that will nurture it, that will continue it, and have it be positive for everybody? Because this isn't like you go in and you don't ask questions, you're not prepared. If someone tells you something, you start crying because you don't like what you're hearing. So that's a really, really, really good stuff. This is incredible advice, Laura. I think this just needs to be like drafted and put into like a Cliff's Notes, a Sparks Notes for the younger generation on keys to success, because I'm a student myself of trying to become successful, right? Again, lots of failure. So I need.
No, everybody's a student. I mean, my whole motto, again, like continuous learning. Once you feel like you don't have anything to learn, what is there, right? That's it.
Right. This is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sitting down and sharing all this wisdom. One of the consistent things that I am seeing for people who are successful they are the people who say yes. And so I just want to thank you for saying yes to doing this, and saying yes to sharing all of your advice for all of the thousands and possibly millions of people who are going to be able to have access to this, because I don't think women are sharing enough advice with each other on how we're all getting there. And so I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for joining us and sharing all this incredible stuff. I know that this is like, it's hit me hard because it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff, Laura.
Well, thank you again, Alecia, so much for putting this together and for doing your networking events and for being spot on with what every woman needs and at the right time. So I appreciate you and I thank you.
All right. And I will see you later.
Okay. Take care.